They say Paris is the city of love, but that night, love felt like a storm. Rain poured down the narrow cobblestone streets of Montmartre, washing away the day's perfume of baked croissants and coffee. I stood under the dim yellow light of a street lamp, my wedding dress soaked, my mascara running like black tears. My hands trembled as I clutched a wilted bouquet. Behind me, the Eiffel Tower glittered in the distance, beautiful, indifferent, timeless. I married the first guy I met, I whispered to myself, voice breaking. And maybe that was my first mistake, or my greatest miracle. The story begins 6 months before that night. The night everything changed. The first morning in Paris felt like a painting coming to life. Pale sunlight slipping through soft clouds, the air laced with the smell of coffee, croissants, and rain-soaked stone. I stepped out of the Gare du Nord station with my luggage, and heart equally heavy, staring at the chaos around me. People hurried by, speaking French so fast it sounded like music I couldn't quite understand. Every word blended into melody. Bonjour, pardon. Elysée, phrases I had learned but never truly felt. I had always dreamed of Paris. In my small hometown in the south of India, I used to paint pictures of the Eiffel Tower and the Seine. I'd tell myself that one day I would walk those streets, eat freshly baked baguettes, and breathe in art like air. Now that I was here, though, it didn't feel magical. It felt lonely. My phone battery had died somewhere between the airport and the metro. The map I printed was wet from rain, and my suitcase had a broken wheel that screamed against the cobblestone streets with every pull. I stopped in front of a bakery window, fogged with steam and warmth. Inside, a woman smiled as she handed out pastries, her laughter soft like butter melting. I wanted to go in, but I realized I didn't even have euros yet. Only my foreign card that I didn't know how to use here. That's when a voice came from behind me, low and amused. Vous semblez perdu. I turned quickly. He stood there, tall, with messy brown curls peeking from beneath a black beanie, a camera hanging from his neck. His accent was unmistakably French, his smile open and kind. Seeing my confusion, he repeated, slower this time, "You look lost." For a moment I could only nod. Completely. He laughed softly, a warm, genuine sound that cut through the chill of the morning. First day in Paris? Yes. I'm supposed to find the Rue de la Sorbonne, the university housing, but my phone died and I gestured helplessly at my suitcase. He tilted his head thoughtfully, then pointed to the narrow street curving off to the right. It's not far. I can walk with you, if you trust strangers with cameras. There was something about the way he said it. Light, teasing, but with a sincerity that made me feel safe. I smiled for the first time that morning. I'll take the risk. We walked together through streets that seemed pulled from an old film. The rain had stopped, leaving puddles that mirrored the grey sky and pastel buildings. He told me his name, Luc Moreau, a photographer who lived in Montmartre. He worked freelance, capturing portraits, weddings, and candid street scenes. I take pictures of people who don't realize how beautiful they look when they're not posing, he said, adjusting the strap of his camera. That's when the truth shows. And what truth do you see in me? I asked, half teasing. He studied me for a second, his brown eyes thoughtful. Someone who's scared and brave at the same time. I laughed nervously. That's oddly accurate. When we reached my dorm building, I thanked him, but he shook his head. No, you must say it properly. In France, we say merci beaucoup, and you have to smile when you say it. So I did. Merci beaucoup, he smiled back, and in that moment, I felt something shift, like the city had just opened a door and whispered, "Welcome home." Before leaving, he said, "Remember, Amara, Paris doesn't give you what you want. It gives you what you need." Then he turned and disappeared into the crowd, camera swinging against his side. That night, I unpacked my things in the small, cream-colored dorm room with a single window facing a courtyard. The city hummed outside, laughter, cars, faint accordion music somewhere in the distance. I couldn't stop thinking about Luc. There was a warmth in his eyes I hadn't seen in anyone before, not back home, not anywhere. Days turned into weeks. I began exploring the city between my art classes, sketching along the Seine, sitting in cafes where writers once dreamed, breathing in every shade of Parisian life. Sometimes I'd catch a glimpse of a photographer in the crowd and wonder if it was him. Then one morning, as I sat at a café near Notre Dame, drawing the cathedral's reflection on my sketchbook, a familiar voice said, "You forgot to draw the people." I looked up, and there he was, Luc, holding 2 cups of coffee. "You again," I said. Surprised but smiling, I told you. "Paris gives what you need," he replied, sliding one of the cups toward me. "I think it decided you needed caffeine." From that day on, Luc became a constant. We met often, by accident at first, then on purpose. He'd take me to hidden alleys filled with street art, to tiny bookstores where the shelves smelled of paper and dust, to rooftops where the whole city glittered below us. He showed me the Paris tourists never see, the one that breathes quietly between sunrise and the first café order. He photographed everything: stray cats, children playing by the fountain, an old man reading in the rain. Once I caught him taking a photo of me while I was sketching. "Why me?" I asked. "Because," he said softly, "you look like someone who's finally finding herself." I didn't know how to answer that, but inside I felt something warm unfold. As spring deepened, so did our connection. We talked about dreams, mine of becoming an artist, his of publishing a book of photographs called Les Moments Silencieux, the silent moments. He said he believed the world spoke most honestly when it was quiet. One evening, he took me to the Pont des Arts, the Bridge of Lovelocks. The sun was melting into gold over the Seine, and boats glided slowly beneath us. The light turned his eyes a deep amber. He leaned on the railing beside me and asked, "If you could lock one feeling forever, what would it be?" I didn't have to think. "This moment," I whispered. He smiled gently. "Then maybe we shouldn't let it end." But the next week he vanished. No calls, no messages. His studio closed. I tried to tell myself it was nothing, that he was just busy, but deep down I knew something was wrong. I searched the streets we'd walked, checked every café, asked people who knew him. Nothing. Days passed into a hollow silence that pressed against my chest. Then, just when I had almost given up, a note appeared under my dorm door. "Amara, I'm sorry. I didn't tell you everything. Meet me at Montmartre tomorrow at 5. Delton, I didn't sleep that night. I went to Montmartre early, my heart pounding like it wanted answers faster than time would give them. When he finally appeared, he looked like a ghost of himself, pale, thinner. His usual brightness dimmed. "Luc," I whispered, rushing to him. "Where have you been?" He took a shaky breath, his hands trembling. "I didn't want to tell you this because I didn't want you to see me like this. I have a heart condition. It's bad. The doctors say it could stop any day." For a long time, I just stared at him. The city around us blurred, people, voices, everything fading until only he was real. My eyes filled with tears. "You idiot," I said, choking on my words. "You think I'd walk away because you're sick?" He gave a weak smile. "No, I thought you'd walk away because I'm afraid. Afraid to let someone love me when I might not have long." I took his hand, holding it tightly. "Then let's not waste time being afraid." That evening, we sat together on the hill overlooking the city, the sunset painting the sky in soft pinks and blues. We didn't talk much. Words felt too small for what we felt. But when I rested my head on his shoulder, I knew my life had changed forever. I had come to Paris chasing art. But what I found was love, fragile, impossible, and more real than anything I had ever known. And though I didn't know it yet, that love was about to rewrite everything I thought I understood about forever. The wedding was small, almost secret, just us, a few of Luc's close friends, and a quiet priest who smiled more than he spoke. It was held in a garden near the Seine, tucked behind an old stone chapel that smelled faintly of roses and rain. The morning light spilled softly through the clouds, painting everything in a silver glow. I wore a simple ivory dress, borrowed from a friend, and Luke wore a navy suit that was slightly too big at the shoulders but perfect in every other way. He kept touching his pocket nervously, where he had hidden a folded piece of paper, his vows. When he read them, his voice trembled. "Amara," he said, "I don't know how much time I have, but I promise that every day I do, I'll spend it loving you, laughing with you, and showing you the beauty I see in the world. Even when I can't walk beside you, I'll be in every photograph, every sunrise, every echo of laughter that this city holds." I couldn't speak for a moment. Tears blurred the world into light. When it was my turn, I said only, "You've shown me that love isn't about time. It's about truth. So even if our forever is short, it will still be enough." When we said "we," the bells from the chapel rang softly above us. Paris felt like it paused to listen. The streets, the river, even the air seemed to hold its breath. Luke kissed me under the pale morning sky, and the world felt whole. The next weeks were filled with the kind of joy that makes you forget pain exists. We moved into a tiny apartment in Montmartre, with walls that creaked and windows that framed the rooftops of Paris like a painting. Every morning, Luke made coffee, strong and sweet, and I would paint near the window while he developed his photographs in the bathroom, which he had turned into a dark room. Sometimes we fought, sometimes we laughed so hard the neighbors complained, but every day felt alive. He loved to dance, even when there was no music. One night, while we were making dinner, or burning it rather, he pulled me close, flour on his hands and light in his eyes. "Do you know what the French say about love?" he whispered. I smiled. "They probably say a lot." He shook his head. "They say love isn't something you find, it's something you become." Then he kissed me, and for a while I believed that nothing could take us apart. But as summer came, the signs returned. He would tire easily. His hands shook when he held the camera. Some mornings he couldn't stand long enough to walk to the balcony. I tried to stay calm, to pretend that it wasn't happening, but I could see it in his eyes. He was slipping away. The hospital became our second home. The nurses smiled kindly when they saw me. "You're the artist wife," they'd say, as if that title made me strong. I brought my sketchbook everywhere, drawing him as he slept. His fingers curled around the edge of the blanket, his lashes brushing his pale skin. I wanted to capture every detail before time could take it. Luke never let the sadness show for long. Even hooked to machines, he cracked jokes. "Look," he'd say, pointing to the heart monitor. "My heart's still dancing for you." Sometimes, late at night, we'd sit by the window in his hospital room, watching the Eiffel Tower glitter in the distance. He'd whisper stories about the people he photographed, a child chasing pigeons at dawn, a couple kissing under an umbrella, an old woman feeding stray cats. "All these moments," he said one night, his voice weak, "I thought I was capturing them for others. But now I know. I was collecting them for you." I tried to smile, but the ache inside me was too big. "Don't talk like that," I said softly. "You're not leaving me." He smiled faintly. "Amara, love doesn't leave. People do." The day he collapsed, the city was glowing with spring light. I remember the way his hand slipped from mine as we walked near the river, how the pigeons scattered as I screamed his name, the ambulance, the sirens, the blur of white corridors. It all felt like a cruel dream. He came back for a while, fragile but alive. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "I didn't want to scare you." I held him close. "Then don't. Stay, please." He smiled, tired but gentle. "Promise me something, Amara. When I go, don't stop living. Don't let this be the end of your story." I pressed my forehead against his. "Then you promise me you'll find a way to stay, in the light, in the wind, in everything." He closed his eyes. Always. That night was our last together. He fell asleep with my head on his chest, the sound of his heartbeat soft and uneven beneath my ear. I woke before dawn to silence. The world had stopped. They say Paris never sleeps, but that morning it felt like it did. The streets were quiet, the sky heavy with grey. I walked back to our apartment alone, carrying his camera in my hands. On the film roll inside, the last photograph he had taken was of me, asleep, surrounded by sketches. Below it, in his handwriting, were 3 words: Mon éternel amour, my eternal love. For weeks I couldn't paint. The world looked drained of colour. His toothbrush still sat by the sink, his jacket hung by the door, and every time the wind blew the curtains, I imagined it was him walking in. But love, I realized, doesn't die. It transforms. One evening, I took his camera and walked through the city like he used to. I took pictures of strangers. A little boy chasing a paper boat in the fountain, a woman singing in the metro, an old couple holding hands as they crossed the street. I began to see the world the way Luke had, not as something permanent, but as something precious because it was fleeting. Slowly, I started drawing again. My art changed, softer, fuller, more alive. It wasn't about technique anymore. It was about feeling. Every line, every colour carried a piece of him. I painted our memories, the bridge, the kitchen, the laughter. I called the collection Les Silencieux Amours, the silent loves. Months later, I held an exhibition in a small Parisian gallery. People came, some even cried, though they didn't know why. I stood in the corner, watching, holding Luke's camera in my hands. A woman approached me and said, "Your paintings feel like they were made by someone who has loved deeply and lost beautifully." I smiled faintly. Maybe that's true. When the night ended, I walked to the Seine alone. The water shimmered under the lights, and the city buzzed quietly around me. I opened the camera one last time, took out the old photograph of us, the one from our wedding day, and released it into the river. The photo drifted away slowly, the paper curling at the edges until it disappeared beneath the ripples. And that's when I whispered, "I married the first guy I met, and he taught me everything about love, life, and letting go." The wind carried my words through the streets, past the cafes, across the bridges, and for a moment I swear I heard his voice in the breeze, soft, amused, familiar. Paris doesn't give you what you want, Amara. It gives you what you need. That night, I finally understood. I came to France, searching for art. I found love instead. And even though it didn't last forever, it became the masterpiece of my life. Sometimes forever isn't measured in years, but in the moments that change you, in the hearts that stay with you, even when they stop beating. And under the glowing Paris sky, with tears and a small trembling smile, I whispered into the quiet city, "Merci, mon amour." And that brings us back to the night I stood in the rain, holding the wilted bouquet, wearing the same dress I'd married him in. I wasn't crying anymore. I was smiling, because I finally understood what Luke meant that first day.